Hi Pirates, welcome back from spring break. Today we are kicking off e-learning day 1. Officially this is unit 10. This is our last unit of the year and it's going to be a mixed set of topics of all different things. This first day is actually a topic you've seen before. We're going to talk about completing the square, which is a way that we can solve quadratics. Remember, a quadratic is anything with an x squared. Okay, one way we can solve is if we can factor. Another way is good old quadratic formula. We like to sing our song. And today we're going to go over completing the square, but we're going to think about this only when our first number is 1. Please remember you can download the Calculate 84 app from your self-service. You can also put it on your phone. It will look exactly like the 84 calculator we're used to using, and it's got all the features you need. Okay, so let's say the directions tell me to solve this by completing the square. Hopefully you remember a little bit about this process. The first thing we're going to do is move C to the right. C is the number that's just chilling by itself, so in this case I have a negative 11. If I want to move a negative to the right, it becomes a positive 11. You might also recall that when we complete the square, we kept a little blank so that we could fill in some information as we go. We're creating a perfect square. So the math magic is next taking half of b, squaring it, and adding it to both sides. B is the number attached to the x. It's the number in the middle. Self, what's half of negative 6? That would be negative 3. If I square it, aka completing the square, I'm going to add 9 to both sides. What I have just done is create something that is factorable on the left-hand side. So I want to factor the left-hand side. What adds to negative 6 and multiplies to 9, not surprisingly, that would be x minus 3 times x minus 3, or x minus 3 squared. I'm going to add these numbers to the right, which gives me 20. Now from here, you might want to solve with the chart. You might just know how to use your inverse operations. We are going to solve. How do I undo something squared? That's right, plus or minus the square root of 20. I have a negative 3, so if I want to move it to the right, it becomes a positive 3. Now it's time for the calculator. Take the lid off, turn it on, or open the app, turn it on. I'm going to type in 3 plus square root of 20. Okay, that looks just like we're used to seeing. And that gives me 7.47. I can do that again. 3 minus square root of 20. And that gives me negative 1.47. Usually we're going to round to 2 decimal places. If you're feeling A++, Pirates, what can you do? You can always check your answer. You would take these, plug it back into the original, make sure that it's true. Okay, so what I'd like you to do now is open up the worksheet from Schoology. We're going to take a look at example 1 together, and then the rest of those practice questions will be your assignment for day 1. Again, the directions would say solve by completing the square. So that's how we're going to want to solve these today. Of course, there are other ways we could do it. Okay, so step 1, I'm going to move C to the right. C is negative, so when I move it to the right, it becomes positive. Now I want to ask myself, self, what's half of a negative 14? That would be a negative 7. In order to complete the square, I square it and I add it to both sides. You can either use your God-given calculator or your app. Remember, don't be afraid to use that for some basic arithmetic. If you need to add 15 plus 49 together, it can absolutely do that for you and you get a 64. On the left, you have created something that is factorable. X minus 7 squared. From here, it's time for step 4. We're going to solve this using our inverse operations. You can also make a chart if that is helpful to you. In order to undo something squared, I square root it. Now, some of you might say, hey, I know the square root of 64, which is absolutely true. You can go ahead and evaluate that. I moved 7 to the right, and now I've got two solutions. 7 plus 8 gives me a positive 15. 7 minus 8 gives me a negative 1. I hope you enjoyed completing the square. We'll see you for the next lesson.